let's take a look back at Ruth and the virtuous woman, Proverbs 31. So let me share my screen with you here just very, very quickly. Here in Proverbs 31, you see in verse 25, she's clothed with strength and dignity, and she laughs without fear of the future. When she speaks, her words are wise. She gives instructions with kindness. There is a significant reference in Proverbs 31 to the way the virtuous woman communicates. She is open and honest in her communication. Today we're going to talk about honesty in friendship. And we find that honesty not only in Proverbs 31, but also in the book of Ruth. Now, where we are in the story of Ruth, we have come up to chapter 4. In chapter 4, in chapter 3, Ruth has, in essence, proposed to Boaz, and Boaz has accepted. He has said, yes, let's marry. But in chapter 3, he says, but there's one thing that we have to do. We have to deal with a relative who is actually closer, who would be the first redeemer. So in Ruth chapter 4, we get that story. Boaz went to the town gate and he took a seat there. Just then the family redeemer that he had mentioned came by. So Boaz called out to him, hey, come over here and sit down. I want to talk to you. They sat down together. Boaz called 10 leaders from the town and asked them to sit as witnesses. Now at this point, the man knows something is up. Boaz said to the family redeemer, you know Naomi, who came back from Moab. She's selling the land that belonged to our relative Elimelech. I thought I should speak to you about it so you can redeem it if you wish. If you want the land, buy it here in the presence of these witnesses. But if you don't want it, let me know right away, because I'm next in line to redeem it after you. Now, land ownership rights in Israel were guarded by very strict laws. Land stayed in the family even when land was sold. That land would revert back to the descendants of the family. But in this case, it's a little bit different because Elimelech has no, Naomi has no descendants. So that land would permanently revert to the redeemer, a close relative. It becomes his property. Well, of course, why wouldn't the man be interested in acquiring more property? That's additional land that he can leave to his descendants. So let's see what is taking place then. Boaz told him, of course, your purchase of the land from Naomi also requires that you marry Ruth, the Moabite widow. That way she can have children who will carry on her husband's name and keep the land in the family. Now, this is a very different case. In this case, he would own the land until the next sabbatical year. At that point, the land reverts back to Naomi and to formally to Elimelech. That's a very different matter. I can't redeem it, the family redeemer replied. This might endanger my own estate. In other words, why would I spend money to care for this land that would never end up being mine? You redeem the land. I can't do it. Now, the actual transaction, in those days, it was custom in Israel for anyone transferring a right of purchase to remove his sandal, hand it to the other party. This publicly validated the transaction. So the other family redeemer drew off his sandal. He handed it to Boaz. You buy the land. Then Boaz said to the elders, to this crowd standing around, you're witness today that I have bought from Naomi all the property of Elimelech and his two sons, Chilion and Mahlon. With the land, I have acquired Ruth, the Moabite widow of Mahlon, to be my wife. This way she can have a son to carry on the family name of her dead husband, to inherit the family property here in his hometown. You're all witnesses today. All the elders, all the people standing in the gate replied, we're witnesses. May the Lord make this woman who is coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, from whom all the nation of Israel descended. May you prosper in Ephrathah and be famous in Bethlehem. May the Lord give you descendants by this young woman who will be like those of our ancestor Perez, son of Tamar in Judah. Boaz had open communication with the family redeemer. By approaching him, he was actually exposing himself. He wanted to marry Ruth, but open, honest communication was necessary here for him to be able to have the transaction that he wanted. Openness and honesty in friendship. Why is that important? There's several reasons. First of all, it builds trust. Honest communication does bring two people much closer together. And we see here in this case, the open, honest communication between Boaz and the closer family redeemer actually opened the door to problem solving. By talking about it, they were able to put everything on the table and discover what the options were. The family redeemer then decided not to take certain options and decided to leave the land to be acquired by Boaz. In addition, open and honest communication among friends. We don't necessarily see that in the story of Ruth. But when two friends are open and honest with each other, it can help them understand not only the other person as well, but help them understand themselves even better. Open, honest communication brings self-confidence as we understand each other better. Now, how do we achieve open, honest communication? Well, obviously, by telling the truth, but that's not the only thing. In telling the truth, we need to be open and honest in recognizing mistakes that we've committed. Let's talk about that with our friend. It can help to build our friendship. It can help us to understand ourselves more. In addition, we need to avoid lying by omission. Sometimes we actually deceive by what we choose not to say. Be careful with that with your friends. Finally, when you make a promise to a friend, keep your promise. That's another way that we deceive others, when we don't keep promises. Open and honest communication builds friendship. We see that in the virtuous woman. We see that in the way Boaz interacted with the family redeemer who was actually closer than he. We need to see it as well in our own friendships.